Howdy everybody, this is Omar, your audio amigo, here today with another episode of the Planar Project. It's been a while, but something tells me the Planar Project is going to come back pretty strong in December. Lots of interesting stuff coming out this month. Today, we're finally going to be taking a look at a new IEM from our friends at Knowledge Zenith. This is the KZ PRX, the latest in the KZ line of planar IEMs. Like the PR1, PR2, and PR3 before it, the PRX sports a single 13mm full-range planar driver. The PR series of IEMs, let's say, has had its ups and downs, but KZ has kept evolving and iterating the design over time, culminating in this, the PRX, priced at $54 US. Starting off, as always, with the unboxing, which is your classic KZ style. You get the IEMs, in this case, with memory foam tips already attached, and underneath the sort of cardboard sleeves, you get the standard KZ silver cable, and a set of KZ Starline tips in the standard small, medium, and large. I quite like the KZ Starline tips as far as stock tips go. They're pretty nice. This is fairly typical for KZ and completely expected for KZ's overall sort of packaging. You don't expect a case, you don't expect a modular cable, you don't expect premium ear tips with KZ. That has always been their brand identity, and some folks really appreciate the simple packaging and bare bones accessories. One thing I will say, my foam tips once again arrived deformed in the package and were completely unusable. I left them sitting out for a month, and they eventually did sort of spring back into shape, although you can still see that there is some wrinklage from where they were clearly used. I have not used these foam tips at all. So while they did spring back mostly usable, they weren't what I call new. I have seen pictures of other people's foam tips arriving sort of pre-worn. It makes me wonder why KZ bothered to include them. If the packaging is going to be rendering them unusable immediately out of the box, just lower the price $1 or $2 and forego the foam tips. Okay, cable. I'm going to be quick here because my opinions on the stock KZ cables are well documented. It doesn't matter if you get the copper or the silver variants. In my opinion, these feel cheap and stiff in the hands. They exhibit prominent memory. They don't behave well at all wrapped normally or roti wrapped. That said, as I've had several people point out to me, electrically speaking, these are very competent cables. The resistance on these is in line with other sort of stock cables. Yes, I did measure them. And this cable definitely won't hold back the performance of the PRX or any other IEMs to which they're attached. That said, if you're going to be buying the PRX and using it as a daily driver, I highly suggest you do what I did and put an extra $10, $15 into your budget for a sort of nicer aftermarket cable. This one I think was $12 from QKZ, and it's modular. So yeah, it's also not perfect. As you can see, it still has some memory to it. It's a bit rubbery, but this, in my opinion, is orders of magnitude better than the stock KZ Tagliatelle cable, at least to me. Okay, cables have agreed to behave so long as I don't mess around with them for the rest of the video. So let's talk about the build quality. The design of the PRX shouldn't be a surprise to anyone who has seen any of the other KZ PR family IEMs. You get an injection molded plastic lower shell with the planar driver and a piece of dampening foam clearly visible through it. The nozzles are a part of the lower shell that's molded along with the rest of it, and you get a recessed metal filter with horizontal cuts in it. In terms of ventilation, you get your single typical vent above the driver, as well as what looks like a giant vent on the back of the IEM. However, like on the rest of the PR series, this grill is basically just for show. There's a big resin support piece under this massive metal structure, and while there is a small hole somewhere in here to vent the rear volume, it isn't the massive grill structure that we see here, so this is mostly still closed back. The back grille, however, is made of metal, and it does add a lot of rigidity and weight to the build. Overall, in terms of build quality, I feel like these are really solid. I have, however, seen reports of these QDC connectors being loose from the factory. Shout out to Finding Sudden on Reddit, who sent me this video. He was experiencing some connector wobble and even failure on his unit straight from the factory. So what I would say is maybe take it easy on these connectors if you want them to last a good while. So let's check out the specs. The PRX is powered by what KZ calls their fourth iteration of their 13mm planar driver. The KZ driver is different in construction to other planar drivers out there, but based on their marketing materials, it looks very similar to me to the driver used on the SGOR Luna and a couple of the other 13mm planars out there. It is different from the 4th gen drivers being used on things like the Tin Hi-Fi Doodoo, the Let You Wear SO8. The width and length of the nozzles is essentially identical to the original PR2 that I reviewed, but the PRX is a bit lighter actually than the PR2 in terms of weight. As far as drivability goes, this has the exact same impedance and sensitivity specifications as the PR2, which means it's tied as the most power-hungry IEM in my collection. I would recommend a budget dongle DAC for these if you're interested in running these. Nothing too crazy. Something like the FiiO K7 I feel is just right for these and worked well in my testing. And now it's time for the cool wall. Last time, the PR2 earned a cool rating on the wall, so let's see how the PRX fares. It's overall a very similar design. In fact, I have the PR2 here. It's overall a very similar design. The, same see-through plastic, same open-backed look, similar aluminum grille. This time the PRX adds that splash of color with those blue stripes. I also really like the gold screws and the planar magnetic tech writing on there. I personally think these look really nice. While I am fond of the blue paint, I kind of wish they would have done a blue-red thing going on. I think it would have worked really cool as a stereo indicator. But yeah, overall, I think that this is an upgrade to the PR2 in terms of overall looks. But I don't think it's enough of an upgrade to push it into Sub-Zero, so it will stay in cool with the PR2. Speaking of the PR2, it did not do well with the Council of Ladies, so I don't expect this new version to do well either. So let's get into it. Okay, this is a surprise. We have a split council. We've got 2 pretties, 1 not pretty, and 2 mez. Looks to me like that blue stripe is doing some serious work. It's a pretty big difference from the PR2. As far as compliments go, lady number 3 would compliment you on these, but the rest wouldn't, which I find interesting. Finally, let's move on to their thoughts. It looks like one of our ladies clearly likes planar drivers. I believe that is lady number 3. The rest is a little mixed. Old school recording studios, borderline meh. I will say the thoughts bubbles here are not related to which lady is saying what. When I do point out, oh, lady number this said this, it may not line up with the picture. It's just the way the graphics are done. Moving on to comfort. The shells here are pretty much unchanged from the PR2, and that means that they fit in my ears extremely well. KZ does a good job at making comfortable IEMs. The extra weight from the aluminum faceplate didn't really bother me. I was able to wear these for long periods of time with no discomfort. As far as my wife goes, however, these almost immediately failed the tiny ears test for the same reason as the PR2. The nozzles on the PRX encourage a sort of deeper fit, and my wife really doesn't vibe with deep fits. She prefers shallow fits due to the size and shape of her ear canal. When she puts these in with a shallow fit, the extra weight of the metal faceplate sort of causes them to tilt out and fall out of her ears. And while she can do a deeper fit, the discomfort caused by the deeper fit mean that she can only wear these for about 20-30 minutes, so that results in a fail in the tiny ears test. But enough about the non-audio things. Let's move on to how these sound. Kicking things off with the bass. The PRX is rocking a pretty serious bass boost here. It's on par with some of the more warm-tuned planars. But unlike some of those other planars, this is more, it feels to me sub-bass focused compared to mid-bass focused. The deeper drops in Lil Nas X's Industry Baby have some nice rumble to them, but the higher frequency ones are lacking some bite for my personal taste. I wish they had a little more punch and slam to them to match the rumblier sub-bass. The drops come across a bit soft in the PRX, which I'm not used to in at least planars of this type. The SO8 might be the dual voice coil in the SO8 and the Doodoo that changes that, but I don't know. Bass guitar and kick drums come across better. The deep bass guitar in the Foo Fighters Learn to Fly, I feel buzzes and hums appropriately. It's a good replay. The bass guitar doesn't get lost in the mix once the rest of the instruments join in. The replay is overall, like I said, quite nice. This is a decent implementation of planar bass. It's lacking a little texture. I feel like they could have boosted the mid bass a little bit more and brought it more in line with some of the other planars with this bass. As is typical with planars, the penalty for boosting the bass doesn't really apply much here for the mids. Male vocals and instrumentals are totally fine and sound very nice. Disturbed's Stricken replays well on this set. David Draymond's distorted vocals, I feel, are done justice by the PRX. The distortion and echo effects on the bass guitars and regular guitars are well represented here. The instruments are easily separable, and the speed of the driver here means that there's no masking or hiding of some instruments behind others. As far as female vocals go, Ann Wilson's vocals in Heart's Crazy on You are mostly untouched by this bass boost. Her energetic vocals and drawn-out notes aren't overly shrill or husky or dark sounding. I will say female vocals aren't really emphasized by this tuning at all. They're not de-emphasized, but they're not sort of put on display in any way. Yoasobi's Idol, for example, Ikuta's vocals don't dominate the replay like they can in some more vocal forward sets, but they also don't fall back in the mix compared to the instrumentation. Overall, I feel like the mids are mostly clean and uncolored. There might be a bit less emphasis on female vocals compared to other sets if you're used to that sound. So, the upper mids and treble. This is where everything typically goes wrong for KZ's planars, and I'm happy to report that those issues have been mostly fixed with the PRX. In terms of female vocal harmonics, the decay is natural. The energy is, in my opinion, just right. It adds sparkle while not overwhelming the fundamentals. Iselin Solheim's vocals in Tiesto's Northern Lights remix of Alan Walker's Faded is a great example. She has these drawn-out notes with some extra S notes at the end that are a really great highlight. They're not sibilant at all. They don't come across as overcooked. They don't hurt. They add a bit of sparkle to the vocal performance that I feel is quite nice. Percussion harmonics on this set are what I'm going to say mostly fine. I say mostly because there's something at the tail end of most cymbals and hi-hats that is fatiguing to me and my ears personally. The bells, cymbals, and hi-hats in Wink's cover of Kylie Minogue's Turn It Into Love, for example. I have zero problems with the initial cymbal strike or bell strike. It isn't piercing, it doesn't fatigue me at all, it sounds really nice. But as the note starts to fade towards the end, there's some unnatural sharpness that starts to creep in and really starts to cause me personally fatigue. Now, this could be me being extra sensitive to something going on in the 11, 12, 13 plus kilohertz area. It might not affect everyone the way it affects me. There are other sets that have energy up here where there's a peak and it doesn't necessarily bother me because of, my ear canal resonance and other magical things going on. That's just my ears personally. The reason I say it's just me, I went ahead and checked out some other reviews, and I don't think a lot of other reviewers are mentioning this. I 100% hear it. I just wanted to point it out because if you are sensitive to that area, this might bother you. But if it doesn't, I actually think this is an excellent treble presentation for a KZ planar. It's really well done. So let's talk technicalities. Even though I felt the bass is a bit soft on this set, the subtle wobbles and sort of echoiness in Steely Dan's Black Cow, the bass guitar bouncing off the studio walls, I could still hear all of the detail there, so it passes that technicality test. At the upper end of the range, the speed and lightness of the planar driver translate into what I think is some really nice detail resolution. The little finger detailing and subtle percussion detail that is so prevalent in Buena Vista Social Club's Chan Chan, I feel is on full display with the PRX. You get all the finger slides, the muting of the strings, the tapping on the soundboards. The technical performance of this is good. I would put it right in line with the other 13mm planars, such as the SGOR Luna, the Kiwi Ears Melody, and so on. I would, however, put it behind the 14mm planars, like the Artti T10, the Nice Heck F1 Pro, and I do think that this is lacking a little bit compared to some of the dual-coil 13mm planars, like the Let's Shure SO8 and the Tin Hi-Fi Doodoo. Moving on to stereo separation, I listened to Mediterranean Sundance on these, which was actually a pretty nice experience on the PRX. Each guitarist had plenty of space to do their thing. The audience in the middle had, plenty of space. There was no claustrophobic feeling. It didn't feel closed in at all. It was a very nice replay. As far as the perceived 3D soundstage goes, I listened to When the Levee Breaks by Led Zeppelin because it's actually mastered to have some pretty good staging going on. You get the guitar in the right ear, the drums from behind you, the harmonica and echoiness off to the left, and then the vocals come from dead center. I feel like this set won't hold back well-mastered tracks in terms of soundstage, and I feel the performance in terms of stereo separation and perceived 3D soundstage is in line with other sets at this price. Okay, the PRX, I feel, is a fairly standard V-shaped planar IEM tuning. You've got the elevated bass, the slightly recessed mids, and the elevated upper mids and treble. Actually, the IEM it reminded me the most of while I was listening, at least in terms of overall tuning, was the Let's Shure S12 Pro. Now, I don't feel that the PRX is a competitor for the S12 Pro for a couple of reasons. Number one, the S12 Pro just sounds more technical, more refined. It's better built, has a nicer cable. It's worth the double price or more that it is. It also doesn't have that tail end sharpness in the high treble that I felt with the PRX. Like I said, S12 Pro is over twice the price, so you need to manage your expectations here. So that said, I'm going to take this one away because I don't feel it's competitive. And let's look at stuff closer to the price range to see how the PRX stacks up. We'll start off really quickly with the one I've reviewed before, the original KZ PR2. This is the nerfed version without the foam in front of the driver, which, as you can see here, they've put back on the PRX. I only have the PR2. I have heard the PR3 and the PR1. Honestly, the PRX is, and I said this earlier, it is by far the best sounding KZ planar, period. If you're going to get a planar IEM from KZ, get the PRX. It's the best one. It just smashes all the other ones in terms of tuning. It is slightly better than a lot of the other ones in terms of overall detail retrieval and technicalities. If you're going to get a KZ planar, it needs to be the PRX. But we'll bring in our first real competitor. I called it the best planar under $50 US. It's the SGOR Luna, priced at $42. And at that price, it includes the USB C dongle deck. The packaging on these two is very similar. Like I said, the Luna does come with that dongle deck, as well as, in my opinion, a much nicer cable. But the tonality here is honestly quite similar. The PRX has rumblier sub bass, but I feel that the texture on the Luna's mid bass is actually better. It's a bit punchier, a bit slammier. They're overall similar in the mids, but I feel the Luna puts a bit more of a shine on female vocals compared to the PRX. In terms of treble, the PRX 100% wins. It's smoother than the Luna. It's overall, I think, nicer than the Luna, but I do feel that the PRX can have that fatiguing trailing edge on cymbals that I personally, and maybe some other of you, can't deal with for too long. That might be a great thing for those of you in the audience who maybe have lost a bit of that hearing in the upper range. That extra airiness will probably be amazing to you, but for me, it's just a little bit fatiguing. Overall, I don't think the PRX straight up beats the Luna, and I don't think the Luna straight up beats the PRX. I feel like these two sort of trade blows. I would suggest that you buy a dongle for both of these due to the power requirements, but, the Luna comes with a dongle from the factory, which I feel like makes it a bit of a better value. That said, the PRX has been on some pretty steep discounts lately, but if you add in the cost of a dongle and a better cable, I think in terms of overall value, the Luna at MSRP at least would come out on top. But, if the cost of all that together is more similar, I'd say it comes down to what your library is like. If your library is full of female vocalists, you have maybe some more mid-bass heavy music, definitely go for the Luna. It will be better for you. If, however, you have something more sub-bass heavy, like certain genres of EDM or hip-hop tracks, and you don't really have a bunch of female vocals in your library, grab the PRX. Personally, I think the Luna is the better all-rounder only because it doesn't have that odd sharpness in the upper treble that bothers me specifically. Next up is what I feel the other big competition for this set It's the best value planar on the market, according to me. It is the Artti T10 priced at $75, but more commonly available for like 55-ish. Honestly, these two tunes are quite different. The T10 has much more forward vocals and a more subdued mid-bass presentation with fuller mids to go along with it. The T10 is closer to the original S12 than it is to the S12 Pro. The PRX is closer to the S12 Pro than it is to the original S12. In terms of overall sound quality, I do feel that the T10 just straight up wins in terms of overall sound quality. But if you prefer a more relaxing listening experience, the PRX and its sort of less technical, less bright sound will be more to your tastes. The T10's accessories package absolutely smashes the PRX, comes with a great case, a great cable, but at MSRP, this is also $25 more. Like I said, if you're looking for that more relaxing sound and you want to spend less than $50, I would look to one of these two. But if you want sort of the best performing planar per dollar, the T10 is still the absolute value king here. So summing up, at MSRP, the PRX actually slots rather neatly between the SGOR Luna and the T10. In terms of overall performance, I do feel it leans closer to the Luna versus the T10, but the tuning I think is different enough to the T10 that I think its really only main competition is the Luna. Like I said, which one of these to choose, I think depends entirely on which one is on sale and what's in your library. I personally would go for the Luna since it's available with the DAC in the box, and it also has a nicer stock cable, which saves you money in the long run. And again, it doesn't have that sharp tonality that bothers me specifically. But if you have a library, like I said, full of sort of hip-hop EDM tracks, you like that sub-bass rumbliness, I could 100% see the PRX, especially on sale, being a good buy here. Alrighty, took everyone else away, took the cable away because it doesn't come in the package. Since it's just the PRX, time to see where it ends up on the Audio Amigo Arbitrary rating scale. I kind of like the PRX. It's easily the best KZ planar ever released. It's relaxed while still being technical. It looks really good. It has a fun sub-bass forward sound. It's really nice. The bass can come across as a bit pillowy or soft. The included cable, while functional and electrically sound, doesn't really feel in the hands like it belongs on a $55 IEM. It also has some minor build quality issues that I've seen crop up online. And as you guys know, my ranking only takes into account the IEM at MSRP. And considering this is $13 more than the Luna and doesn't come with a DAC and also has a worse cable, I feel like it's not great value at MSRP compared to its main competitor. So already I can't put it in the same ranking place as the Luna. Also, while the tonality is more relaxed compared to the rest of the KZ planar family, to me at least, there's a sharp edge to the trailing ends of percussion that ends up being fatiguing. I understand that's just for me, but this is my arbitrary rating scale, which means this is how stuff sounds to me. So the fact that it isn't as good a value as the Luna and the fact that to me it's fatiguing in percussion, I'm going to end up putting this in the good tier, which again is a good improvement on the PR2. If the tonality worked for me, if it didn't have that sharpness, basically saying if my ears weren't shaped the way they are, this would easily be in but I like this. I just feel like in terms of budget planars, SGOR kind of knocked it out of the park, and KZ needed to come out swinging to stay competitive. And I feel like with the cable and the no DAC and the fact that the tonality for me is a bit piercing, this is more like a bunt as opposed to a real swing. Good thing is, this thing is already seeing pretty steep discounts. Mentioning discounts leads me neatly into the recommendation. At MSRP, I can't really recommend the PRX when the Luna exists at MSRP with a DAC for $13 less. On sale, however, things get complicated. This QKZ cable that I mentioned earlier is, I think, $12, $13 or less on sale. A decent dongle DAC, I'm going to steal the one from the Luna, is around, $13, $14, $16. So if you can get the PRX for $25, $30, this is actually super competitive. I wouldn't recommend this if you're sensitive to upper treble, just in case your ears are shaped like mine. Your ear canals are shaped like mine. I also wouldn't recommend this if you're looking for a starter kit with full accessories, because you need to buy the starter kit yourself. Um, I would, however, recommend this if you can get it, like I said, 25, 30 bucks. You have a library full of, EDM, sub-bass heavy hip hop, or other electronic tracks. I would also recommend this if you're looking for a cheap planar to try out and you already have a set of cables or a DAC that you can use, but only if you're not sensitive to that upper treble area. Overall, I think this is a very good showing from KZ. It isn't perfect, but neither is the Luna. The PRX's flaws, I feel, are a little more pronounced than the flaws in the Luna, and I think KZ knows it, which is why they've been slashing the price. I think I saw this as low as $28 over the Black Friday, Cyber Monday 11/11 sales. At that price, I think it's very affordable, and I think it was a very smart move by KZ to lower the price basically immediately after launch, because it will compete better with the Luna if it's the cheaper of the two. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Planar Project. Not a bad IEM by any means, just not the sort of home run I feel KZ needed to outright win my title of best planar value under 50 bucks. That title still belongs to the SGOR Luna, at least for now. Again, I'm doing my best to crank out content as quickly as I can while still maintaining a modicum of level of quality that I can sort of be proud of. That said, that's going to do it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been Omar with Audio Amigo Reviews, and I will catch y'all next time.